Eastern Standard Hour of Empower. I am so honored to have Gretchen with us again today. And Gretchen's been here a long time and has grown as well as the show and the audience. So pleased with the way everything's evolving. Chat's open and that's primary. So we'd love to be able to address whatever you're thinking, whatever you want us to talk about. That should take priority. The word of the day is integrity. I know it has many different uses based on how it's applied. And with that said, Gretchen, why don't you bring us up to date since you were here a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, hey. So it's always a fun time, but been an interesting couple of weeks. You'll notice I am sans headphones today. My headphones broke this morning. So I have the earbuds in. So if you see me doing this, I'm just trying to get those suckers back in my ears. But yeah, no, it's been great. I have been working on a presentation, finalizing a present. Well, it's actually finalized. I've just been practicing it for Great Careers Group. I'm giving a presentation on perception versus reality in the workplace. I'm going to be doing that next Thursday from 5 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. I'm really excited to be able to get to talk with them and their audience. So I'm excited about that because that is a thing that trips a lot of people up, is understanding their versions of that. And everybody has a different one. So I'm excited to give that talk. Other than that, just, we've done the flight attendant every Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do a hat tip always to you and Trevor Van Worden for helping kind of me getting on solid footing to just be able to do that and go live. And I don't go live every day like you do. You are the man. But I am really grateful that I'm able to do that because it has really helped me reach other people with what I do, and also help them meet new people, new resources, which
Mhm.
is that's the point of the flight attendant, is to help expose people to new resources and new people who can help them with their challenges. So yeah,
No, I
that's
think
what I've
it's
been up to.
win-win-win all around. And I think that's what integrity is to a point. It's not just what you do with yourself, but what you do with others that can really expand integrity because, showing people the way, a lot of people don't have integrity because they don't know any better. They're doing what they know or what they've been taught. And there's certain protocols that once you can integrate that could make it more of an honorable integrity. But like every word we ever discuss, everything is an evolution, right?
Hmm.
There are no absolutes. You're not 100% this or zero that. But
Hmm.
what Gretchen's saying is the more exposure you can get through the most relevant audience. Too many people think every audience is the same and they say the same thing no matter where they appear, and it's just like throwing a dart, maybe you'll hit, maybe you won't. And I think, there's so much balance that it takes to bring more people on, bring them on the right way,
Hmm.
and then wish them well and have them expand. Because if anything, everybody's softening the market for LinkedIn Lives, right? The more people do it, the more people see it, the more people take advantage of it. It
Hmm.
broadens everybody's audience because
Hmm.
it's really like a network. And I always promote everybody's show because, to be honest, there's not enough shows. There's more people who can use them than are available to them. And until you try other things, you don't really have context,
Hmm.
right? And you can learn from multiple places and not have to choose. Just like you might watch a comedy one day and a drama the next day. What's your thoughts, Gretchen?
You just sparked a thought in me, which is that one of the things when I think about integrity, that as people are broadening their own personal horizons, as you broaden your own personal horizons, you help everybody who you come in contact with broaden theirs. You can be that example through your lived reality, right? And you can help them maybe if they're afraid to take that first step, go live the first time. You can help them through your experience. I've talked about how I got over a 13-year, we are not doing photos or video by going live every day on Facebook. Now I had training wheels on that going live. Nobody knows me on Facebook. Nobody cares what I do on Facebook, but I still did it. I had to get over that. So, whatever it takes. But what I see some people doing, and what I would caution against is, don't mimic what you see. You are unique. You are authentic. I've said it before. No two people on the planet have the same fingerprints. There's a reason for that. We are fundamentally different, organisms by design. And that is important. So the way you do a live, which is, you every day, wow. But there's a certain organic chemistry that you have with your audience and the people that you're interacting with. And that's great. Somebody else can do it as well, but they're going to have a different chemistry, and that's okay. They're both going to be right, because it is what is for that person. They may attract a different audience. We can call it your tribe or whoever, but the people who resonate with your message and are ready to hear it will hear it, just as long as you find the platform so that you can get it out. There's always someone who needs to hear it. How many times have you Googled something and found a video and you're like, that's the exact thing I was looking for?
Mm-hmm.
That's a message you needed to hear. You needed to find that person. And that video, whether it was a recorded live that you watched on the replay or live, helped you to do that. It gave you the avenue to find the resource you needed to touch that thing inside of you that said, that's the information I was looking for. And so what I would caution people to do in the name of integrity is decide, if you're going to do it, but do it your way. Even if you're not sure about your way, even if you don't know what your way is, you will, as somebody said in the chat earlier, you will figure that out. We are all becoming what we're meant to become, and we'll never stop doing that. So go live. Take the chance. If it doesn't work the first time, cool. What did you learn? Bring that into the second one, and on and on and on. I'm about to do what we're going to do, episode 15 of The Flight Attendant tomorrow. I'm super excited about that. That's 15. I do it every week, not every day like you, but that's huge. And I've been able to create it in a way that makes sense for me and is authentic to me and speaks to my integrity, because again, it's the purpose of it is to give something back. That's my give, right? To the LinkedIn and Twitch and, Facebook and YouTube communities that I'm part of, is meeting other people who can help them. Right. So I think all those things are important. But when it comes to integrity, I would say, yes, go for it. Do the thing you see so many other people doing. So many people are doing lives right now, and that is fantastic. Do it your way. Do it your way. There's an audience for you. If you've ever walked out your door and connected with somebody over something, no matter what it was, how big or small, inconsequential or monumental, that's a connection you made. You can do that on video as well. And there are people who need to hear you. Yep. That's what I would say.
Well,
thank you, Paul.
Yeah. Paul, because Leslie asked flight attendant, Paul came back with flight attendant, which makes so much more sense.
It's funny. Yeah, the autocorrect or whatever it is, like when you're doing your subtitles, everybody it always thinks it's flight, but it's plight, like problem. It's just my name for problem solver. Everybody has a plight, a situation, some kind of challenge they want to work through, and that's what I do as a career and personal leadership development strategist. I help people solve their problems. It's a nice way of saying it.
And Leslie comes back and says, was a Northwest flight attendant in the 60s, flew U.S. troops into Vietnam for a chartered airline.
Wow.
Leslie's just got a wealth of information, was actually on the show the other day and coming back Wednesday.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding is so many people have so much to offer,
Yep.
And matching people and pairing people with the right people could be so essential. And I agree with Gretchen. The way you do something every day is having something you look forward to doing every day. Like every day I exercise, right? I don't miss a day, sometimes more than less, or either way. But the same thing with this is I look at this from the beginning as something I can learn with and from. when you take responsibility for teaching or providing, that's huge because every
Yeah.
day you got to conjure it up and you got to deliver it. When you can find yourself in the audience instead of above the audience, then you're one of 50, which puts about 2% strain on yourself versus one of one with 49. And I
Mhm.
think with integrity, it has to be balanced and it has to be comfortable, right? Because if you're not comfortable with it, it's going to be hard to continue. And right? Go ahead,
I,
Gretchen.
I I will say this. If it is uncomfortable for you, now there's a certain, discomfort that comes from pushing your boundaries and growth. Personal growth can be uncomfortable. But if it's uncomfortable for you in a way that there's that fundamental knowing, that internal pull of discomfort, then it's not coming from a place of authenticity. It's
Mhm.
not coming from a place of integrity. That's your body and your soul letting you know this isn't the thing for you, or it's not the way for you to do it. Again, if I try to shoehorn my method into something that somebody else says this is the way, it may not be my way. Have you ever had somebody who's, you've taken a program, you've taken a class, and they teach a way to do something. And no matter what you do, that way doesn't work for you. You're doing everything 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that they said. You're doing all the steps, you're doing everything right, but it's not working for you. There's a reason for that. You can have the perfectly laid out plan, but if it is the perfectly laid out plan universally, but not for you, it may not work. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you failed. It means it's not your plan.
Mhm.
You have to be part of that. And if you're not, you can feel that. And it comes through in everything that you do. And so that's why it's really important to understand where you fall into things and where your personal integrity comes into play on that. If it doesn't feel like it's a match for you, there's probably a good reason for that, and it's worth exploring.
Well, and I think that speaks volumes to options, right?
Mhm.
I mean, if you go into a store and you try some on, it doesn't fit. You don't change you. You change what you're putting on, right? Because you're not going to change you too fast. And what I see is give yourself more time, more grace, more opportunity, when you're trying things on. You don't go in and look at the first car and say, I'll buy whatever I see first or whatever someone tries to sell me, right? You take it for a test drive, you go home, you talk about it, you think about it. Maybe you do it now, maybe you do it later. It doesn't matter. If you're good with where you start, that's a
Yeah.
good start, right? If you're happy. And I think too many people know so little but create such large expectations,
Yeah.
right? That they put themselves in a position that someone who's been around. I mean, I've been doing this every day on LinkedIn for 3 years, and I've been doing it every day on LinkedIn Live, and I'm still not there, and I know that, right? And knowing that means it's only going to get better. I'm going to be able to put the finishing topping on, let's say, when it
Mhm.
finally, and it will never not be a work in progress.
Yeah.
Uh, it's lovely when you can let life and every day come to you,
Mhm.
right? And be in a position where you can't wait to add a little value to it and the
Mhm.
people around, right? If you're
Yeah.
full, it's so much easier to feed others. So that's what I think integrity is. They say a lot of integrity has to do what you do in the dark, right? When it's only you, right? And that's when no one knows, no one will ever know, and you stay true to yourself because that's consistency. What's your thoughts, Gretchen?
I think it's the things that you do in the small, quiet moments that really define, reinforce, or reveal who you actually are. And it's those things that you do when you don't have the audience, when nobody's going to be clapping or paying you or whatever, or singing your praises. You're still doing it. And that matters. I think those are the things that make everything else possible. When you can get back down to you, if you're not able to do that, then it doesn't matter what else you do, because it's going to be sort of like that house built on sand. It's not going to, it won't stand. It can't, because you don't have that strong foundation in yourself. I think that's really important for people, for everybody to know. And I think a lot of people do fundamentally know that. The challenge there, that in my view, is that we're so conditioned to get that yay, atta girl, you did so great. We share, we're encouraged in every corner of society to share this, share that, share with. I shared this morning that my headphones broke, and I was like, well, I gotta laugh it off because they're headphones. I have Bluetooth earbuds, so it's not the end of the world. But I was like, okay, well, why am I sharing that? And I thought, why am I even going to do a video about that? But then I know some people waking up on the wrong side of the bed, right? It's a phrase, but that can happen for people. And then what happens is, one small thing that throws you off your game, takes you out of your routine just a little bit, can create a negative ripple in your mind. That creates a negative ripple of thought and action that follows it all throughout your day. That's how a bad day starts. That's how a bad day continues. That's how a bad day ends and begets more bad days. But you can stop that. And so I thought, well, hey, whatever it is, I'm just going to put a good happy Monday morning message out there, because sometimes that's all that matters. That was a small thing that I did this morning before I walked Newman. I was like, I'm just going to do it, but we're encouraged to share all kinds of things. What we often don't realize is that a lot of what's being shared may not be from the most, the strongest place of integrity. I'll put it that way. Everything we see in our AI generated and, Alexa, play me this and whatever, filter kind of world isn't always coming from a place of the highest integrity. And so we have to be really careful about that, because what we see influences how we think about the world in general, but also about ourselves and our place in that world, where we fit in or don't. And then comparisons get made. And then thoughts come from that. And then if we continue to do that, again, this is the neuroplasticity of the brain. You think it long enough, it becomes something you believe to be true, and then you act on that. And I think that's really important to remember. Getting back to your point, it's the things you do in the small, quiet, private moments that give you the strong foundation to move ahead from a place of integrity and authenticity and everything else. If you could do whatever you do when there's no audience, again, think about if you go live for the first time and you don't have anybody in the audience. Keep doing it. I just created a YouTube channel for the flight attendant. I have 29 followers. I am not upset about that. I'm like, sweet. I'm excited to see it grow, but I'm still going to put content there, even if it doesn't, because that's important to me, to get a message out there. To help people understand there are ways, techniques, strategies that can help you through these challenges that you may not have thought about. And again, I have a vantage point that a lot of people don't, having been through some stuff, and that helps me along with training and experience. But that's helpful. But it's those things you do when you may not have that cheering audience behind you that are going to give you that foundation. Don't be afraid to be yourself, do your thing, and know who you are, because there are people out there who want to connect with that. Not what you think they want to see, not the glam filter, not any of that stuff. They want to connect with that real person who's got the same troubles they do and may have figured out a way through some of them. They want that person.
Yeah, and I think that goes with integrity in having regular, honest conversations.
Yeah.
And when you communicate regularly, there's little room for doubt, right? When you just asked a question yesterday and got an answer, you're pretty caught up at that point.
Yeah.
And, again, everything is the integrity of perspective, and if you look at every day as a new beginning, and, whether it's the flight attendant or Hour of Empower, it's a platform. It's a canvas, right? That anybody can add to it, people to it. It's a playground.
Yeah.
And anything that's way too much fun, you never get too much of, right? So if you're having a ball, the last thing you want to do is go home to where you just are always.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with integrity is when it serves you and others, it becomes something you want to build on and build with and share with others because it allows more collaboration, more understanding.
Yeah.
You know, in today's world with all the social uh, media and everything else overwhelming people,
Yeah.
I think shows like this, like Gretchen's, like Trevor's, I mean, on and on and on, provide a safe harbor for everybody,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? You can go to any of those groups and you're going to find some really wonderful people, sincere, high integrity. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Gretchen.
I was gonna say even if you take the video live out of it, there are also other places like the audio events. There are some great audio events, right, that are happening out there. I know you've had her on your show, Melissa Houston. She has her coffee chat every Saturday morning. And total inclusion there. Ayag Buho has some great ones. Her lives they're like so great. But a lot of people like there's a lot of information out there, and there are a lot of opportunities to get involved in those. And you're right, they're very inclusive. People want you to not only feel welcome, but to share your experience and what you're feeling about whatever the topic is. I wanted to mention something that Varsif said, and I hope I got that right. I'm pretty sure I did not, and I hope I didn't butcher it too badly. But he said, we can have negative thoughts or positive thoughts depending on a strategies, and positive and negative thoughts help you in numerous backup plans to achieve. And I just want to touch on that for a minute. And if I read it right, I just want to be sure to caution people to be careful about negative thinking and critical thinking. They are not the same. Critical thinking can serve you very, very well. Negative thinking tends to be skewing that way without a basis of rational reason. So you want to be careful between negative and critical thinking. Critical thinking is absolutely very important. It's deductive reasoning and everything else that goes in with that. But you want to be careful about equating negative thinking and critical thinking, because they do have some fundamental differences there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of having open discussions is a lot of things are facets, degree, that if you add this little piece to it, it starts making more sense. And
Yeah.
that's when things resonate and balance with you, that you're in harmony,
Yeah.
and that's a very good word one day. Leslie comes back and says her definition I saw here.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, for me, integrity is about being my word, and if I break it, I clean it up by taking responsibility, making new promise, and moving on.
Yes.
And I think moving on is part of having integrity, right? If you believe in the future, if you believe you have an obligation for you and the people who care and love you
Yeah.
to keep moving forward, to accept responsibility, because once you accept responsibility, you build accountability. And accountability is a great foundation for integrity because you're always going to make misjudgments, you're going to make mistakes, and you're
Yeah.
going to do things that you really shouldn't do. But everybody's human and everybody does it. But the best thing you can do, learn from it, take responsibility, be the first to apologize when you know you should, and there's an expectation. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Gretchen.
I was going to say, because Leslie, and yeah, I'm going to send both of you my spreadsheet link for the flight attendant, because I would love to have you guys on there. But, she makes a really good point, between negative and critical thinking. Critical thinking is responsible thinking. Negative thinking is reactive thinking. One comes from and she says reptilian brain, which is what I call the saboteur brain, and one comes from the sage part of the brain, right? So the reason that that's important is because when we tend to skew negative, which is not critical, that's our brain trying to fill in gaps. And I think we talked about this on a previous live, right? Something bad happens, or something you perceive.
Mhm.
Let me walk that back. Something you perceive to be bad has happened. A change you did not see coming, may not have created for yourself, and don't welcome. Your brain immediately goes to worst case scenario planning. It just does. And there's a reason for that. As Leslie said, that's part of our old survival brain technique. It's also because the brain likes to fill in gaps. It's just how we're made. We want to construct scenarios to avoid that danger. on the other side of that, that blue sky of opportunity of what it could mean, that actually seems kind of scary to us because we don't know that. At least the dangerous part we're familiar with because our brain always does it. So we tend to skew negative out of habit because that's what we're used to doing. So she's absolutely right. It is a practice. It is non-reactive, but you have to learn it. So there are some strategies that you can do to help give yourself that small cushion of time to help calm the survival brain down and let the sage brain come in and help you work through that challenge in a calm, rational way so that you have the benefit of that and you're not making shortcut reactionary decisions that generally don't lead to good outcomes. So you can do that for yourself. There are ways that you can do that. And I think it's important to kind of go, underscore that distinction that she was talking about because it does matter. How many times have we made a snap decision about something? I was just thinking about that the other day where two people, let's say if you're back in the office, right? You get to your work and you have a colleague who does the same job as you, right? You both show up, you park at the same spot. You notice they drive a nicer car. You have thoughts about that. People do. They go to, that's an expensive car. We do the same job. They must be getting paid more than me. This is unfair. My boss is cheating, like they're cheating, like I'm not getting what I'm due. Your brain goes and creates these narratives. They don't have to be true, but if you tell yourself anything enough, you believe that it's real, and you'll take action based on that. So the opportunity there is figure out a way to give yourself the strategy and the techniques to not do that, so that you're not doing that. We all do it. I mean, it's a very benign example of perception bias, but everybody does it. Where you assume something about a situation or an individual that may or may not be true based on your whatever you perceive in that moment. And that's where that reactive decision making can have really, really detrimental impacts to you, especially to careers and relationships.
Yeah, and I guess it was with Leslie. We were talking about manifestation as the word,
Mm-hmm.
and what you internalize is what you project, knowingly or unknowingly, and attract.
Mm-hmm.
So you create sometimes the result you're trying to avoid initially by falling into that fear trap, by having a drama that's now created in your mind that is only in your mind. But it takes.
I'll
Go ahead, Gretchen.
Yeah, Kim Wheatley Morris she had a good question. What are some of the main causes of negative thinking? Is this a default action depending on personality type, experiences, or a combination? I think it's a combination. So for example, if you are predisposed to be a hypervigilant kind of, you have that in your personality. It's one of my top saboteurs, I know. So that personality type is somebody who's always waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're always on the lookout, right? On the lookout for the danger. So you're going to try and create these on the fly scenarios, the what ifs, if that happens, I could do this, right? You're constantly doing that choreography in your mind. That's a behavior. It's a personality type that leads to behavior based on thinking, old thinking patterns that you can break free of. But that is an example of what happens. If you have, for example, I'll use another one. This is a great way that people manifest things they don't want. Let's say you are somebody who, like me, a lot of women I know are the pleaser mentality. And you'll be, oh, I'm a people pleaser. That's not a good thing. And let me tell you why. People pleasers. I saw somebody the other day on Facebook was like, if you say I'm sorry a lot, you're a people pleaser. Well, that's partially true. Any statement has partial truth to it, probably. But really, a people pleaser personality is somebody who is the need to be looked at positively and liked is very strong for them. So they will create situations where they can almost Florence Nightingale the thing, right? They come in, they want to help, they want to do things for people. And then what ends up happening is they tend to be like, well, they don't even know how hard I worked on that for them. They have no idea how long it took me to do that for them. They're not even thankful that I did that for them. There's a resentment that builds up. You've begun to create
Mhm.
negative relationships with the people that you thought you were trying to help, but they didn't ask for it. There wasn't a conversation. There was no give and take there. You just came in and thought you were going to do it because you were trying to satisfy a need in yourself. You were trying to do what you perceive to be an esteemable act, but they had no idea you were doing it. So why would they know? That's how those things can manifest negatively. You can create those situations that you didn't mean to. Someone gives you, the side eye. They may have just been looking at something on the floor, but you perceived it as a side eye. You got on the elevator with somebody and said, "Hey," they didn't respond. Now you think they're rude. Your boss walks by you, you're in your cubicle or, in your office. You say, "Hey man," he doesn't respond. You don't maybe notice that he was on a call. He's listening. He's getting ready to respond to a question on his earbuds. He didn't hear you. You didn't know that. Now you have thoughts about him. He's rude. I'm not going to say hey to him tomorrow. And the less you engage with him, the less he's going to engage back. That's just the law of reciprocity at work. Now you are actively creating a negative relationship with that person, and he has no idea until it gets really bad. And you respond to him in a way that he's not quite sure where that came from. This happens all the time with people where we assume facts not in evidence because our brains want to fill in gaps. He didn't respond to me. Here's all the reasons why. Who's ever in the chat? Who has ever sent a text to somebody who didn't respond right away? And now you're like, are they mad at me? Oh, did I do something wrong? Did you ever look to see if they read it? Right? You saw they read it and they still didn't get back to you? Ugh, now I can't believe they didn't get back to me. Clearly they don't care about me. I mean, we do this all the time. Why didn't somebody respond to our email right away? That person's ghosting me because they didn't get back to me. Are you sure? Did you follow up? We create these situations. That is how thinking patterns produce actions, benign or malignant, however you want to put it. They produce action that creates situations. That is why I say everybody lives at the top of the results pyramid. Whether you want to or not, you live there. The results, the reality that you live every day is the product of the actions you take. And you take those actions based on your mindset, what you believe to be true. And you've told yourself to be true, the narratives you've created about any situation. And there are ways that you can stop that. There are ways you can break free of that. But a lot of that is how a lot of those are created. So Kim, to your point, it is a combination of both.
Well, I think along with that, you said a key word there, which is getting evidence.
Yeah.
Now, like any investigation, you don't see one piece of evidence and make a judgment, right?
Right.
If you give it time, sometimes it self-resolves itself, right? Because maybe the next day is somebody said, "I heard you talking, but I had my earbuds, I wasn't listening," right? And it
Yep.
just took care of itself.
Yep.
The key is collecting more evidence, because
Yes.
when something happens like all the time, then it is it. When it happens once, and that's what shocks people. Someone did something totally unlike them. They're never like that. And then they do it.
Yep.
And then that's the problem with anything written versus verbalized. Because when you're talking directly in front of somebody, you see their reactions. If someone says no in caps on a message, you don't know what that means. Are they mad? Are they angry? Are they emphatic, or didn't they care? But before we go further, I want to really recognize some of these wonderful people. Melissa's here. I agree with Paul. We know some really important influencers here who go out of their way to help so many people.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like Paul's promoting Leslie for people's shows because she's a quality guest. And it's sharing both ways. Here's an influencer you should listen to and watch their show and be part of it. This isn't like people are like at the back and some people at the front. Everybody's in a circle together.
Yeah.
And everybody loves to see new people, and especially loves to see like-minded people. And one thing about integrity, it's a lot easier to have when everybody around you has integrity, right? When you're not worried about who's scheming, who's scamming, who's selling today. When everybody says, "Hey, leave your weapons at the door. We're all safe here."
I'm sorry.
It's like the Old West, right? You go to the saloon or something, and everybody says, "Hang up your guns."
That's so funny.
But it's true. And
Yeah.
when you don't have to worry about things, now you get to wonder about things.
Yeah.
So you turn
Yeah.
worry into wonder, and then you wonder collectively. And if
Yeah.
everybody can throw a little piece into the pot, everybody's got a better soup to eat from and replicate. And the key to anything that's valuable is it sustainable? Is it
Hmm.
duplicatable? Is it scalable? And
Yeah.
integrity definitely can be duplicated, can be sustained, right? And you can engineer that in, and because it's so scarce, it's so rare. When
Yeah.
people can get to that, that's the stickiness. Go ahead, Gretchen.
I would just say this, and I've had to do this work on myself. Who am I kidding? I do this work on myself every day because every day there's an opportunity to go, girl, stop. Where you, again, going back to assuming facts, not evidence, I have to check myself every day. If I'm about to react something or I think a certain way about something, how do I know it's true? How do I know that I'm coming from a place of being genuine and really looking at the entire thing? Is what I'm doing and what I'm about to say beneficial beyond me? If it's beneficial beyond me, we're good. If it's only beneficial to me, then I have to weigh what it is. Brushing my teeth, beneficial to me. We're going to do it. Beneficial to you? Probably not, unless, a really bad smile at some point would be like a real problem for being on video. But those are the kind of things you have to think about, seeing the world in terms greater than yourself. And that's hard because what that means is you may have to confront some things about yourself that you may not really be happy with. You may not like, maybe you're quick to judgment. Maybe you're just that kind of personality. I am telling you, I know, that people pleaser in me. I call her little Yessie. She gets me in trouble. If somebody's like, I need help, I'm always like, I'm the person who wants to help you. But the challenge there is I need to be careful also to understand that not everybody who says I need help wants my help. They may not need my help. They may need me to say, hey, I know a bunch of people or great resources that might be good for you to connect with. You know, that hyper vigilant, or let's say that you're like, you just don't want to cause a problem. There's a situation, you see it, but I'm not going to get involved. The avoider, right? You're avoiding it. By avoiding help, trying to give a positive and beneficial, look at something, you're just creating more of a situation. You're digging the hole deeper. Avoidance never solves anything. It's still there. You're still going to have to deal with it, but now it's worse. Like that not saying hi to your boss kind of thing. And like you were saying, grab the bull by the horns. Just say, hey, I said earlier too, you must not have heard me, just assume something, right? Like, maybe you didn't hear me. Maybe you had something in your ear, or, maybe you're just, your brain was somewhere else, but I just wanted you to know I said hi to you. But a lot of people don't do that. And there are a couple of reasons why. One, our ego is hurt, right? They didn't acknowledge me. Now I don't feel acknowledged, seen, or heard. And so now I'm mad at that person. But if we can rise beyond that, we can invite them back in the conversation. It's the same way if somebody interrupts you, right? And I am a notorious interrupter. So I slap my hand for that one too. It is a bad habit that I have. And it's because it goes back to my pleaser. If somebody says something, I want to give them great information so quick. Oh, it's right here. You got to hear it. But they haven't finished their thought. I'm being rude. I'm not trying to be rude. My intention is to help. They don't know that. I need to work on that. I need to understand where my challenges are so that I am helping build positive, helpful, fully connected bridges between people. Those are the kind of behaviors that we can trip over without realizing it. When people see me as rude, and I've been told, stop interrupting me. I'm like, well, but you need to hear what I have to say. But they don't, not then. I got to own that. That's an uncomfortable truth about myself. But the more we know about those things, and Christina's right, just like, Leslie was right. That kind of old thinking, but understanding where it comes from and that it's not me, it's a behavior. I can correct that behavior. Again, there are strategies, techniques, new habits, thought patterns, all those things that can work to help you with that. Again, this goes back to RAM thinking, but that is really important because people trip over themselves on that all the time. Who's ever gone into a job interview already thinking yourself out of the job? You try to come off as confident. You got the confident voice pitch and all that, but you maybe falter a little bit on your speech, or you fidget, or you're just sweating, or you got that, strawberry right here that some people get, or whatever, you have a tell. You are telegraphing that insecurity because you've already talked yourself out of the job. Why? Maybe you have a lot of hypervigilance in you. Always, well, if this one doesn't work out, I got 3 more applications out there. Something's going to, you're always looking for the other shoe to drop. You could guarantee it will when you start doing that because you're thinking it, and pretty soon you're going to take action. You may not mean to take the action. It will be a default program that you go back to because that's how your brain works. Again, practice. When you get into the practice of moving beyond these things, that's how you can prevent them from happening in the future. And that starts with really getting clear on who you are and what you're about, and why you do and think the things you do, and how they may or may not be serving you. Those can be hard conversations to have with yourselves, but boy, they're rewarding.
Yeah, and I think there's so many easy tools one can use, which is ask if you're confused.
Yes.
I mean, it's so much easier. You see, too many people come out again with their 6 shooters blasting right off the get go. And, if you're with someone you care about and you believe has an interest in you, just say something happened yesterday. I'm a little confused. Can you help me out here?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And naturally, the person would say, "Sure. What do you got going?" And it could say, "Well, I saw this, or I heard this, or I felt this, and I don't know if it was me, but I'd like to clear it up because anything you take home that's not yours will stay yours until you let go of it or you resolve it." Yeah. And if the other thing is, if people get to know you're sensitive to certain things, I mean, if you say I'm allergic to peanuts, right? People go out of their way to make sure they don't have them around you. If you say, you may not be aware, right? And that's something you can help people with, but I've got a situation you're probably not aware of, and here's what it means to me. I wanted to share it with you. So sharing is caring, giving yourself time. And, here's another concept that's really hard for people is being the better person. Accepting that you're going to be doing more, getting less, but still doing good for the whole situation that you're involved in, right? It's like get it done. And I think people equate, time and trouble and hardship as a negative, but that's all part of hard work. That's all about leaning into something and drawing deeper than you have before, which is stretching. But just like any conditioning, the more you do it, the stronger you get, the easier it is to do next time. And you're modeling, when you're doing things with people, sharing things. One last thing, I want to recognize Lillian, who's back. Lillian's just great. I'm going to have Lillian on the show. Kim's been on the show. Kim's just terrific. She builds everybody up. Dean, I'm so happy for the first time. Scheduled a Zoom call with me this week. And Dean's everywhere. Even Paul, I always say, I don't know what he does because every show I go to, he's already there. Every event he participates in. And you know what? Yeah. You don't forget the people who show up. You may not always recognize them fully, but you remember them and you know what they do for you. They know the introductions they make for you. Yeah. And, Paul could have been selling himself today instead of promoting other people on the show like Leslie. And that's when it makes
Melissa.
Why not be in a situation where you're in wonderment of what people do around you? Instead of saying, hey, they looked the other way, they must be disrespecting me. What about the people why did they go out of their way so much? What did I do to deserve that much love and affection? And you know what it does? I got to get back at that person in a good way. Usually when someone throws a rock at you, the normal tendency is to find a bigger rock to throw it down. But when someone throws something that's glorious and wonderful, you may not be able to duplicate it immediately, but you're planning something. I'm going to take care of this person when I can or somehow. What's your thoughts, Gretchen?
No, I think that's really important, especially, the people who are looking or who are showing up all the time. And again, there's a reason for that. That's the beginning of real community and helping find your place in that community. And yeah, to Leslie's point, be looking for the greatness in others, right? Keep an eye out for that. That constant wonderment is really not that difficult to do when you meet somebody for the first time and you just want to get to know them. There are some amazing people who the nuance, the richness of their character will blow you away when you really get into it. And that also will change your perspective on what's possible for you, what's possible for them, how you can help them. Yes, it is. It's always there. Everybody is so interesting and really so unique in so many ways. And I think that's one of the things that people can forget. We all want to get to, trust and, respect and accountability, but those you can't have without being able to see the other person and see yourself in them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where humanity begins. That's, to me, also a big sign of integrity is when you can see yourself. That's that common human thread that we all share. So you can speak to the other person from the perspective of, I see you. I see me in you. I see you. Even with your struggles and your challenges and your success and your differences for me, I see me in you. We are both human. Now from there, we can begin to, create a certain level of trust, and work with each other on that. This is integral for business. It's integral for everything. You can't have trust without that. And without trust, the other thing you can't have is healthy dialogue. You
Mm-hmm.
can't give somebody a critical, piece of information or a criticism, a constructive criticism. You can't do that if you don't have trust. If you do that, they're going to take it because they don't believe that you have their back anyway, that you have their best interest at heart. So if you say anything negative, it's going to land really poorly. And then you don't get to the holy grail of relationships, which is mutual accountability. I want to do good things because I know it's going to matter to you. I want you to do good things. So I'm going to be here to watch you and help you and support you doing good things because I want that for you. Where does it start? Seeing me in you, that humanity. That is a core of integrity to me. To me. Now, to Paul's question before, I do think integrity is something that is, developed. I think it can be there are circumstances where our integrity can be challenged. We all know what they are. Instant gratification, money's a tool. That's all it is. It is a
Mm-hmm.
tool. And if you know how to use it, great. And if you don't, there are ways to learn. But that is a big one. Vanity is a great one. Comparison. Ugh. Comparison can chip away at your integrity because it can make you question yourself and your worth and your value and your uniqueness and your beauty and your power and everything that's wonderful and yummy and delicious about you. There's no comparison to you. Nobody compares to you. Ever. Ever. That is where you get right back down to that. And integrity lives there. It does. Yeah.
Well, I think you make so many wonderful points, and they're validated and revalidated by the audience.
Yeah.
It's so
You're such
great.
a great audience.
Yeah, so not only people are listening, but they're complimenting what we're
Yeah.
saying and expanding what we're saying and making it better because everybody plays a role. And if you have a role, you're important, right? If people depend on you to bring the value you bring and it's appreciated, that's
Yeah.
how you can do something every day because it's a finer, stronger, happier audience than any other hour of my day. Usually I'm dealing
Yeah.
with strangers or myself or
Yeah.
things that happen all the time. And I mean, they're nice and wonderful, but they're not overly, there's no mystery to it. And the fun thing is, life is what you make it. If you want to make it a comedy, you can live a comedy. If you want to make it a romance, if you want to make it a drama, a horror story, whatever it is, you build the stage you're on. You decide what costume you're going to wear. You do the dialogue. You invite the other characters. So
Yeah.
what is serving you? And here's the thing: is once you life, enjoy it. The other
Yeah.
day, the word was celebrate, right?
Yeah.
If you've arrived, hang out for a while. Don't jump off to the next adventure. Maybe it's somewhere you want to live for a while and have fun. Go ahead.
I will say this, I wanna piggyback on that word celebration because this came up in discussion that I had yesterday with a bunch of people, and it was about and we go back to what you said about, in private, those small quiet moments that you have with yourself. That's when it's really important to review all the successes you've had. A lot of times we don't celebrate somebody used the word yesterday, and it's not my word, but micro win, micro success. And I think it's really important because a lot of times we'll be like, my goal was lose 10 pounds. But I'm not going to celebrate I'm not going to buy the new thing. I'm not going to tell myself yay until I lose 10 pounds. Well, if you lost 1 pound, that's a win. That's something to celebrate in yourself. People a lot of times will quit on their goals because they lose motivation because they don't see the progress, and we don't see it because we may not recognize it because we're looking for the big one, not the little one. We all want to play to the room where everybody's like, "Yay, you're so great!" Fan, like, share, blah blah. Instead of, I have something really important to say, or I really believe this, or I think this can help people. I'm just going to put it out there. And if nobody wants it today, great. Maybe they'll want it 2 weeks from now. But it's in those small, quiet moments by yourself when it's so important to be mindful of all the great things you've done and that you're going to continue to do, but never lose sight of how good you're doing right now. The goal is still out there. Maybe it'll take you, you know, X amount of time. Maybe, it won't be like, everything wants to be like 10 steps to this or 9 days until, and, 6-minute abs and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, we like to put timeframes on that because that's, it's great on SEO and those kind of things. But life isn't really SEO. Life is, this moment here right now today. And this moment here right now today, you're pretty good. You're doing pretty good. That's pretty freaking awesome. And then the next moment, the next one. And so again, on and on and on, but you string those together and it's pretty freaking awesome week, month, year, decade, whatever. Like, seriously, everybody's going to have down times. And this is not toxic positivity. And this is not, rose colored glasses thinking. This is life. This is how you do it. You handle the crap, the husband not waking up for 6 days after surgery, his ventricles stopping squeezing every time they tried to bring him out. You handle that by understanding the little things. He's still here, right? We're still okay. That heart's still beating. We're going to get there. You do that. You don't give up because the big goal of him waking up didn't happen on the third day. My gosh, I would not be here sitting here having this conversation if I had done that. That's just real world. That happened 2017. All those kind of things. You still in the moment, and people forget to do it when things are really when the tornado of life is going around you and you're walking through it. We forget to look for those little things that are okay, that we're like, okay, I can hold on to that. I can hold on to that. I can come back to that. This I don't like. This I can come back to, whether it's a friend, right? Somebody you can call, whether it's just a memory that you have, whatever it is, that's your win. If you're having a bad day, you still have wins. They're there. You just have to find them and hold on to them.
Well, and I think, being a little older, and everybody can relate to this, it's easier looking back than looking forward. Because, when you look back, I mean, I do go back because it's important. I remember the first LinkedIn Live, and you're right. It was 8 minutes all by myself with no audience because that day I was the only one who knew I was going to do it. And, and you're running around a track that you expect an audience one day to be around, but you got to do your run, right? But
Yeah.
even 3 months ago, 4 months ago, where I see where it was and where it is, and what that lends itself to is not just appreciation, because there's a lot of hard work by a lot of people. This is, I've always said, is like a mosaic. Everybody brings their little beautiful piece, but collectively it can be the most unbelievable thing for everybody. Is where is it going to be 3 months from now? If you just let it roll, right? And you're on the right road with the right people,
Yeah.
In 3 months you'll be there, and if not in 4 months, how many people would love to have 2 steps forward, 1 step back? Right? Every time you can do that, you're picking up a step, you're moving in the right direction, and why not enjoy the ride? If you finally get a wave and you get to ride it, and now you get to manifest things you never thought would happen, or in most cases, your time had passed.
Yeah.
You had your shot, you had your window, maybe you took full advantage of it, but hey, when it's coming around again and you can do it the way you want, right?
Yep.
Because one thing about having anything that's yours, you don't have to get permission, right? If you're working for somebody or have to go through somebody, you're preparing, how do I get their approval? What if I don't get their approval? And you know
Mhm.
what happens? You tend to accommodate. You tend
Mhm.
to give up something that you don't want to give up to get something you should already have. And I think by having a group of people who all they do is profess what we're saying over and over again,
Yeah.
somebody may think maybe they're right. If you ask yourself a question, have I ever been wrong in my life? And could it ever happen again? Then that's pretty much where you are when you start anything. And, I think what Gretchen just did is so important. When things become like unbelievable, I almost have to laugh. And it's not out of
Mhm.
humor, but it's almost like I can't believe it, and you start chuckling a little just to take some of the sting
Yeah.
away. And,
Yeah.
and you say to yourself, this is going to take some time. I mean, right off the bat,
Yep.
like someone comes in and really quick, you say, this ain't going to be an overnight deal. It's going to take some time. It's like, okay, let's get the provisions in place.
Yep.
Let's get the support, and let's deal with it and let's take care of it, right? And if you can do that about anything,
Yeah.
your commitment going forward is steadfast because that's the only way.
It's an old saying, again, not mine, but I think it's really important, is the surest way to guarantee that you will have a problem is to focus on it.
Hmm.
It absolutely will happen. And that's not putting your head in the sand and all those kind of things. But when you're focusing on the problem, you're not focusing on the part of the problem that is the solution. And problems are just challenges. Like, I hate the word problem, but you know, that's really important, is to understand, okay, this thing happened. I can't do anything about the fact that it happened. You know, I mean, Steve's surgery, the house blowing up, MS, like, my mom, I mean, just everybody has their stuff. Those things will happen. But there is somewhere in there, and you won't see it in the moment. You won't. When my mom was in the hospital, when cancer was going through her, I did not see the gift in any of that. Looking back, I can see a lot of them, a lot of moments that I had, that I learned, that I became more and better, more empathetic, more aware of other people and their needs in those situations. There's a gift in there, everywhere. Having my house blow up in 2018 gave me an incredible appreciation for generosity, you know, just things in general, permanent safety, security. Like, I never thought about it really until you don't have it. All those things. There are gifts in all of them. Nobody, it's hard to, if you're not ready to hear that, it's hard, but it is important to remember when those things are happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and once you start putting together things that work for you, and
Yeah.
everybody, like Gretchen says, is an individual. What worked for some people may not work for somebody else, but that's the beauty
Yeah.
of it, is you get to cobble together your own team to deal with any situation, right?
Yeah.
And I think one thing that really helps to have integrity is to feel like you're in control
Mhm.
of what you do, of where you go, of how you do it. Once you have that confidence, because to me, success has always just been an attitude. I've seen people with nothing reach huge levels of success. I've seen people with everything reach huge levels of
They're
success.
in our
And it wasn't
audience,
their,
Paul, Melissa. I mean, they're here. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
well, and even Nicole,
Yeah.
who just became a #1 bestseller,
Yep.
and people are showing up and they're telling the same story. A year ago, I would have never
Yep.
believed where I am today. I could have never, and that's the thing is, why have to figure out where you're going to be a year from now? Because you may end up limiting yourself based on where you started,
Yeah.
thinking of that's where you want to be versus, hey, it's a river. Let's just enjoy the flow. Let's go with it.
Yeah.
Let's look around while it's happening. Let's embrace this because, to your point, things like your mother's story happen so quick, happen so dramatically. You don't have time to get rich with it,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Later on, it starts to sink in.
Yes.
Later on, words start coming back,
Yes.
and you think, how gracious somebody was for me. How much did they take my feelings
Yeah.
into consideration when I wasn't the one who was being
Yeah.
challenged? And that's true integrity,
It is. It is.
you know?
And it makes you realize it every day. Back to Leslie's point, you always be looking for that wonder and that greatness in everybody because it is there. Yeah, absolutely. I know we've gone over, but it is there. So and that is integrity. That is part of it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's funny how one word can take over an hour, and if we wanted to, not even if we had to,
Yeah.
we could stretch it to 2 hours and still not run out of
Right.
things. And that's, they always say, leave having people want more than less from you, right?
Right.
So leave them dancing in the aisles, and you know these people are just unbelievable because the other beautiful thing I know from shows like this and yours and Melissa's and Leslie has Think and Grow Rich every Friday, no charge, does 12 episodes and continues it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's Friday, an hour before mine. And she actually did it on my time for all this time. And she switched it so we wouldn't conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And that shows a lot of integrity,
Yeah.
And so, with that said, I hope everybody adopts a little more integrity going forward. It's not hard, but I tell you, it is a big factor in being proud of
Yeah.
yourself. When you didn't cheat, you didn't cut corners, you didn't have to hurt anybody to get where you're going. With that, rest up 23 hours. We have Andrea. Last words, Gretchen. I mean, again, I'm sorry, but I was never able to cover all of these messages. Actually, when Mike was on last week, we had 445 messages during the show. I mean, that's a
It's a
lot of
great
stuff.
audience. It's a great group of chat. I mean, yeah, that's my last word. It's a great audience, man.
Well, you make it greater because you sure bring a lot of enthusiasm and integrity to the
Thank
show.
you.
And, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to model it in what you do and how you do it around people that you really, really enjoy seeing becoming successful.
Yeah.
It's like popcorn. Some people go first, but everybody will get their shot. And you
Right.
can't help it when the tide's so strong.
So funny.
So, with that, I'll say goodbye before we get off on something
Yeah.
and enjoy your day.